All right, let's dive into a story that really makes you think. It asks a pretty profound question. What happens when a sacred rule clashes with pure, heartfelt love? We're going to find the answer in a really interesting winter festival, Odhana Sashthi, where a simple piece of cloth ends up sparking a whole divine debate.
And this is the big question at the center of it all. I mean, how can an offering, an act of pure devotion, be considered impure by the very rules that are supposed to guide that devotion? It sounds like a total contradiction, but that's the puzzle we're going to unpack today.
So, our story starts with this really beautiful winter festival. On the surface, it seems like a simple, caring tradition. But as you're about to see, there's a deep spiritual puzzle hiding just beneath the surface.
Okay, so the festival is called Odhana Sashthi. It's the day when the deities in the world-famous Puri temple get their first set of warm clothes for the winter. You know, it's a simple, loving gesture, right? But it's the details of this offering that cause all the commotion.
Now let's get into the garments themselves, the Odhana. They are absolutely brand new, and they're heavily starched, which makes them look perfectly pristine. But here's the kicker, the one detail that causes all the trouble. The cloth is offered completely, totally unwashed.
And yeah, that one detail, an unwashed cloth being offered to the Lord of the universe, it kicks off this intense debate between two of the greatest scholars of the time, Swarupa Damodara and Pundarika Vidyanidhi. We'll just call them Swarupa and Pundarika to keep it simple.
So here's where they stood, side by side. On one side, you've got Pundarika, who's all about purity. He's arguing straight from the sacred texts. Unwashed cloth is ritually unclean, period. It's just not acceptable. But on the other side, Swarupa champions devotion. He says, look, the Lord's will and this tradition, which is born from love, are way more important than some procedural rule.
And you can really feel Pundarika's internal struggle with this question. He wasn't just being difficult or rigid. For him, this was about protecting a core principle of his faith. This was about the absolute integrity of worship itself.
So what happens when two brilliant minds like this hit a total dead end? Well, sometimes the answer has to come from a much higher authority. And in this story, it shows up in a pretty incredible way.
The two scholars were just at a standstill. They could not agree. But that very night, as Pundarika was wrestling with his doubts, he got an answer, a very direct and very personal one.
In a dream, Lord Jagannath himself appeared and spoke to Pundarika, and the message couldn't have been clearer. I am beyond all the worldly rules you've created for me. What I truly accept is not the perfection of your ritual, but the sincere love in your heart.
Now, a message like that doesn't just end an argument. It completely redefines the meaning of purity itself. It establishes what you could call the Lord's law.
So the dream gives us this new definition. In the eyes of God, true purity has nothing to do with ritual cleanliness. It's simply the genuine, heartfelt love of the person who's making the offering. That's it. That's the only purity that truly matters.
This basically reveals a kind of divine hierarchy. At the bottom, you have religious laws. They give us a framework for worship, which is important. But above that, you have heartfelt devotion. That pure love actually supersedes any ritual. And then at the very top, you have the divine will itself. Because Lord Jagannath is the ultimate source of all laws. He makes the rules.
So when you put all the pieces of this sacred puzzle together, the unwashed cloth, the big scholarly debate, and that incredible dream, we're left with a simple but incredibly profound truth. The ultimate lesson of Odhana Sashthi is that love is the highest form of purity.
And that leaves us with a question that goes way beyond just this one festival, right? In our own lives, when we find a conflict between the established rules and sincere, genuine love, which path is truer? That's a powerful thought to take with you. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.